welcome once again, ladies and gentlemen, and all the ships at sea. It's me, your charming and delightful Uncle Rat Bastard. This is Crazy Comics and Stories, and we've got a shocking news update. Going to the source, Joe, crazy writer. Joe, what's it like over there?
Cory, I happen to be downwind of where it's really bad, and I gotta tell you, he came just right out of the stands, hopped over the snow cone booth, and just ran across the field, naked as a jaybird. I hollered over to Ethel and I said, "Don't look, Ethel," but too late. She already gotten a free scoop.
Oh.
I want to tell you this. I know, at least according to what you tell me, Mr. Strode, that we do have listeners in the professional comic industry out there.
Yes.
And of all the hundreds and thousands of $1 million ideas that Cory and I have given away, the one I did not think anybody except me would follow is fuck DC. And by God, they're doing their damnedest to make sure I never, and I mean ever, buy another DC comic again. I'm not talking graphic novels. I may buy graphic novels, but holy guacamole, the fur is flying, the scalpels are going. It's the end of the world as we know it.
So for those of you who don't know what we're talking about,
which is usually the case,
about a week ago, everybody at DC received an email and was told that there was going to be an announcement, and it was not just for DC. There was pretty much a big announcement for all of Warner Media.
And they basically brought in Vince McMahon, and he said,
"You're laid off."
Or
fired. They're not saying fired.
Oh, yeah. They can't say fired.
They're telling people they're laid off.
You are out of here. Pack your furries and go. No.
It is all over the place. The head of TNT programming, the guy who brought in All Elite Wrestling, he was let go.
You're out of here.
Although he was hired almost immediately by NBC Universal. Which that makes it interesting, because the reason we have All Elite Wrestling on TNT was because he is friends with the owner of All Elite Wrestling, Tony Khan, and now he's over at NBC Universal, where the ratings for WWE on Raw are not doing that well. They're running about 1.7 to 2 million, whereas even a year ago they were around 3 million. Year ago when they got that huge deal.
Huge.
Which ends in a few years.
Yes. But as usual, this comic book podcast has veered off into wrestling.
Well, I just want to mention that 650 people throughout all of Warner Media were let go.
You're let go. And series are dropping. I mean, they're cutting back titles.
Well, let's talk about DC Corporate first.
Well, see, nobody really cares about DC Corporate, because all we care about...
talk about the fact that a third of the editorial staff are gone.
Nobody cares about editorial staff. All they care about...
Bob Harris and Bobby Chase and the other people who worked with Bob Harris are gone.
Yeah, all they care about really is that 20 to 25% of their books are going to be cut. Because really...
That's what Jim Lee said. Jim Lee's job was changed from publisher to
Hatchet Man.
To Chief Creative Officer.
He called up Todd McFarlane and his Image buddies, and they said, just how the hell did we get rid of Liefeld? I need to redevelop those skills and get people out of here.
But editorial got just jacked hard.
Yeah. If you're not Wonder Woman, Superman, or Batman, you're canceled.
Here's a bit that I don't know if, Joe, you read about. Black Label is dead.
It's dead. You thought Vertigo was dead? Nope. It's gone.
But they will be finishing up the series that they are contracted for. The trade paperbacks that for adults.
We didn't have a contract. if we didn't have a contract. Teen Titans, Young Justice, Suicide Squad, Hawkman, Constantine, Hellblazer. That whole dream universe is gone. Aquaman. Aquaman was potential at the time, but right now it's out of here.
Aquaman, that was the announced leaving of the creative team. So they're saying that Aquaman will probably come back next year with a new number one.
He's drowned. Or, no, he's asphyxiated since he can't drown. Yeah, they're gone. They're out of there.
Jim Lee gave an interview where 20 to 25% of the line will be cut. And he said, quite frankly, because they aren't making money.
Yeah. Which comes back around to what we were talking about, how it's from the top down. Kurt Busiek on Twitter has a very interesting roundabout way talking about how DC devastating wave of layoffs are a lot like Ace the Bat Hound.
Oh, okay. I was going to say it's a lot like what happened to Marvel in the right after the Heroes World thing.
No, that's part of it.
It was called Marvolution, but actually everybody who worked there called it Marvelcution, as in execution.
Yeah, no, he basically says that Ace was inspired by the success of crypto, even though the first Ace story would have had to have been written and drawn before the first crypto story even hit the stands. And the thing is when you're looking at what's going on with DC, you got to look at the larger world, even though, like I was saying in the beginning, a lot of us don't really care. But what essentially the deal is that a lot of this was because of the success, Ace, the Bat Hound, the success of Lassie and, is it Rin Tin Tin? I forget what the other. And just because they were successful doesn't mean everything else had to be successful. And basically, the wave that is hitting Warner Brothers and HBO has nothing to do with DC Comics. It has more to do with people not going to the movies during a pandemic, because when AT&T bought Time Warner, they expected this billions of dollars in revenue, and they're not getting it. And so all the guys who said to AT&T higher up, say this is a good idea because not only will we get this stuff, but we'll have all this billions of revenue, and then we can turn around and stream it. Well, unfortunately, the HBO Max rollout also wasn't as
robust
as we thought. Much like the Marvel bankruptcy in the 90s had nothing to do with the very profitable Marvel comic line, more with corporate debt being piled on the company by its owners. Well, that and Ron Perlman, leveraging the hell out of the company, whereas all the stock went into his pocket and all the debt went on to Marvel books. And then, of course, they bought tons of other things that they probably shouldn't have, and then they had to turn around and, let's put it this way. Corporate America is very bad at utilizing and optimizing and maximizing what they have. They're very good at cutting costs, because when the bottom line, the shareholders come and they want to know about AT&T, what about this $1 billion Time Warner thing you suckered us into? How are we getting our money back? Well, we cut, how many people did you say overall?
650.
Is that just DC or?
That's through all of Warner Brothers.
They say something like that, and does that get the stockholders happy? The stock bumps up. They get, see, we're cutting costs. We're gonna get your money back. Whereas a rational person would look at it and say, okay, we own all this stuff. Let's start making money at it. But that's not the way corporate America works. Corporate Europe, corporate Japan, corporate Canada, whatever, they work that way. But America basically looks at what can I buy, what can I cut, what can I liquidate, all for stockholder returns. A few companies don't do that, like Coca-Cola doesn't give quarterlies because they're like, we can't be chasing quarterly profits when we're trying to build a long-term business. And it works because they're number one soda in the world. But this is, and I've said this before in the podcast. Marvel and DC have been owned by corporate people for ages. And it's just a matter of time. Marvel's time was the 90s. Now it's DC's time, where that bloodshot Sauron-like eye comes looking at DC. And we already know AT&T is not quite sure what to make of DC Comics when the exec that's unnamed told Brian Hibbs, I don't get why we're even publishing these things. That's DC is, you're on the corporate block. Again, there's such a small portion, but when you start adding up all the, we could spend an hour listing all the properties of Time Warner. It's huge. Disney huge. And now they just, okay, what's a little cut here, little cut there, little cut here. But for us who are, we're so focused as DC Comics, it's pretty major. What did you say the editorial line gone? A third?
A third of the people in editorial, mostly the people who'd been there longer. If you were like an assistant editor or these are two different jobs, believe it or not. An assistant editor or an editorial assistant, you were fine. You didn't get cut. And I'm reading between the lines of what people are saying, but it looks like pretty much if you were a Bob Harris person, you were gone. One of the reasons the Black Label line is gone is because the executives heard about bat penis.
Mm-hmm.
And that got their attention as to, the hell are you doing over there? Never mind the fact that Watchmen has penis all over the place.
Oh, yeah.
Boy, have they made a lot of money off Watchmen.
Yeah, big blue wangs going across the screen to the point where I went, ew.
And they're, the TV on HBO's up for how many Emmys? I don't even know how many Emmys. But it caught the attention. They were like, what are you doing over there? And you can kind of tell this by who they put in charge. Jim Lee is still he is the chief creative officer, which is a position a lot like what Joe Quesada has over at Marvel, whereas he kind of he's the liaison to all the other parts of Warner Brothers. He's also the one who does the redesigns or will ask for a redesign. But in a lot of cases, you look at all the New 52 costumes, those were Jim Lee redesigns. The whole Superman without the trunks, the changes to Batman, things like that, those were all created by Jim Lee. Jim Lee's still in charge of that stuff. So the new Batman costume, he had his hands in that. But the two people in charge, first is Marie Javins, who was over at Marvel for a long time and was let go during the 90s when they got rid of a lot of Marvel editorial. She did a lot of world traveling, a lot of not indie stuff, but independent publishing stuff outside of comics. Kind of came back into DC and is known to have experience in the book world. She was also heavily involved in the digital. The other editor is Michelle Wells, who runs the young adult publishing. So the first thing you heard when Jim Lee gave his interview, if you're paying attention, is that they're going to be focusing on the areas where they are successful, the digital first and the young adult publishing.
Boo, or that I don't care about. That's actually
to the point where there's a lot of stuff that's digital first it's not selling great, but it does well enough. Like what is the DC Marvel Zombies knockoff? DCeased.
Yeah.
The Injustice, the spinoff of that video game. For all the people who talk about how, it's just digital first, that thing ran for 4 years as a tie-in to the Injustice video game. There was also a Batman thing that was just put into a Omnibus. I don't remember the name of it, but there was a long Batman thing that was digital first. They are going to be focusing more and more of their energies there, which makes this next part very strange. Everybody at DC Universe was let go.
Yep.
Which doesn't surprise me, because more and more of the DC Universe stuff was being ported over either to HBO Max or the CW, to the point where the first season of Stargirl was a DC Universe that was ported to CW. Well, now Stargirl's just going to be CW. Doom Patrol already was HBO Max. The other stuff from DC Universe is moving over to HBO Max. I don't know what this means for their digital comic area, which is just now starting to get usable. Remember when I first talked about it, it's like, oh my God, the interface is so terrible. The interface has gotten better to where it's about where Marvel Unlimited was about 5-6 years ago. Not great, but usable.
DC Direct, gone. Those
Yeah.
are the guys who do all the toys and statues and whatever.
And that was just everybody gone.
Yeah.
Jim Lee went out and, did the happy. Oh, we're not abandoning the comics market. We're not abandoning comic shops.
Yes,
but
they basically have no idea or care less about how bad they have screwed over most of the comic market. We've talked about it in the past, so it's not worth rehashing here.
But he talked about this 2-year plan. I read the memo. I read his interview.
I think they're just letting the direct market go.
Is.
They're letting the direct market go, because as soon as they say everything you talked about, and he's talking, it's all going digital. No, you're basically, after all these years, DC is abandoning the direct market. I'm sure they're going to keep it and whatever, but for reasons you and I talk about, graphic novels potentially sell millions of copies. DC's not getting a piece of that action. And I'm sure they're trying to figure out how, and now they got the fire behind them, figure out how to do this. The adult market, nope. I think we're a dying breed, Cory, you and I, old guys who week after week want the monthly comic. I can see them going trades, because even if they never publish another comic in their life, and I ain't saying they are, but I think they're going to that, they could just continue to do trades, in which case I would probably be out, because I personally don't think at the level DC and Marvel sell their trades for, and don't get me wrong, they're nice packages, but to drop $20 to $50 on a package, well, right now, when you and I, Cory, we go through our previews as we're wont to do, and we look, okay, this is something that do I want to pay $50 for, or even half price if I look online? And most of the time, 9 times out of 9, the answer is yes, but sometimes the answer is just no, because it's been available in a cheaper format, or you're only giving me 280 pages for $50, when over here you're giving me, 700 pages for $50. I've talked about in the past, why am I buying a hardcover? Drop it $10 and give it to me for less. Will DC do what Image does, and most of their trade, that first trade is $10? I'll give you my $10 to give it a try. And then other ones are anywhere from 15 to 20 to 25, depending on how much you put in it. I do not see them going the route like some people do, where it's, we brought this creator in to do this story, therefore, will you give us $30 for the hardcover if it's an original graphic novel? I don't see DC doing that. Marvel's, they kind of do it, but they still publish it out in I don't want, what do we want to call it? A comic book form. I was going to say pamphlet, floppies, whatever. But ultimately, they may not do that. They might just, we've got 70 plus years of back stock. Let's go through and see how much of it we can package and repackage ad nauseum. You brought Watchmen up. I'm sure they're happy to continue to keep publishing Watchmen. I just saw a new edition in a comic shop I stopped at today. Nothing on the cover, just that smiley face with a splotch of blood on it. And people, the comic owner said, hey, yeah, I just got this new batch in, and it's sold out like crazy. So that's an old frickin' story, but people are still buying it.
Well, and because it's, I heard about this Watchmen on my HBO.
Yep.
Or I heard Watchmen, the TV show, is up for 10 Emmys. And we can talk all we want about how it doesn't matter. It matters. Because if you want a book to sell a lot, boy, you give it a TV show or a movie, sales go up. Game of Thrones sold okay till the TV series. Then the sales went insane. There's a new Batman movie coming out. There's all this stuff on the CW. And one of the things I've kind of kept pointing to, when you watch that CW show, and then you pick up the comic, well, this is different. Why is it so different? Green Arrow's girlfriend isn't Black Canary on the TV show. Barry Allen is the Flash. So no matter how much we love Wally West, Barry Allen's the Flash on the TV show. I talked about it before with Spider-Man. You could say we're going to replace Spider-Man with Ben Reilly all you want, but once that TV show, once that cartoon, once that movie has Peter Parker in it, people are going to pick up the comic and go, wait a minute, who's this blonde guy who works in a coffee house? That's not Spider-Man. I also want to knock down a few rumors. There is of course, rumor going around that, it's because they went and multiculturaled up their universe. No. Matter of fact, one of the edicts from the people above are, hey, we found that if you have more multicultural characters, those books sell better. We want more of that. They did a story, one of the young adult novels is a story about a Chinese Green Lantern. You know why? Boy, China has a lot of people who buy books. Or, we're going to have this character who's from India. Boy, there are a lot of people in India who buy books. Mm. Boy, Black Lightning sells it makes a lot of money on the TV. Boy, people like that Jon Stewart character in the Justice League cartoon. You're looking at a whole new world now that we haven't had before. Part of it is that we've known for years that Jeanette Kahn and Paul Levitz kind of protected DC from all the corporate stuff. Because they were able to, they met their budget perfectly. All the news that they got was positive. For all the talk that we heard about Paul Levitz pulping a book. Boy, if somebody would have seen that bat penis and pulped it, just think of how different the world would be right now for the people working at DC. Black Label would just be going along real quiet. But nope. It got on the news. It got on Fox News. It got on CNN. It got on MSNBC. It got in the news.
It wouldn't have mattered if it was boobies or full frontal nudities. But, boy, you show a wang in a comic. Oh, that's bad. That's bad.
Well, you show a wang in a movie. They don't. We show female nudity all the time. I can't tell you how many cop movies you watch where, we need to go talk this case over. Let's go to a strip club.
Yeah, we like boobies.
But,
like yeah, like boobs a lot, boobs a lot. And I'm shuddering thinking of Dennis Franz's ass on, what was that one?
Blue.
I read this comment by Graham Hill, and he's talking, it always seems to come down to all or nothing, an abandonment of one market approach in a chase to grab a new one. And again, this is kind of what I've been harping on. It seems like DC is just abandoning the direct market. It was, to me, and this is something corporate does constantly, which I find just immensely stupid. This is a market that everything you sell is 100% sell-through. Absolutely zero returns. And from that, yeah, you could go to, well, there aren't a lot of book places around anymore, but one of the biggest problems with book sales, they can return them. You think Barnes & Noble don't return them graphic novels that don't sell? Or that DC doesn't cough up, or Warner Books coughs up a little rebate cash when it comes time? Hey, we got all these unsold copies. What are we going to do with them? And they're working to make markets, but boy, they're doing their damnedest just to gut the direct market. I'm sure only Jim Lee knows for sure, because Jim Lee's like, hey, we're not going to get rid of comics. They're not going to close down DC. Comics serve a lot of purposes. Well, yeah, copyright, trademark, whatever. It just
creating IP.
Yeah.
Boy, they are churning out new characters in Batman a lot, aren't they?
Oh, yeah.
There's a reason for that. And it's not because the creators are like, I want to add to the legacy. It's no, we need new characters. So, hey, Harley Quinn did well. Let's get another Joker girlfriend who's different from that. See what we could do from that. The other characters that are coming out of this Joker war story. People don't back in the 60s and 70s, they would just drop in new characters because they needed them for a story. Now there's profit sharing and who owns what, and creators share in this, and you need to show that you're creating new IP. Intellectual property is what IP stands for. You need to show that you're creating new stuff that they can base toys, cartoons, TV shows, movies, lunchboxes, underoos, t-shirts. The buzz around the creation of Harley Quinn, I mean, think about that character even 10 years ago. It was one of those things that us comic nerds knew. Well, she exploded. And it's, oh, well, where did she come from? Oh, she was created for the Batman animated series. Oh, well, we need to start creating stuff like that. And
they ain't going to get it from the direct market, because a lot of the creators already know they may not get anything out of creating something for DC. Most of these guys who are names that have made stuff, they can go to Image or IDW or Dark Horse or anybody else, publish their own creations and keep more of the money.
There's also a bigger problem with creating new characters and stuff, and that is the direct market is openly hostile to new characters.
Oh, yeah.
How many new characters where, oh, here's a new number one with this new character, have lasted more than, say, 2 years? I can't think of any in the last decade.
Yeah, I mean, occasionally you see things that pop up.
Spin-offs.
You see a
spin-off
Deadpool.
of Batman, a spin-off of Superman, a spin-off of Spider-Man. The reason they do that is, okay, now I've got this character called Punchline who's, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I'm going to put Punchline out as a first issue. Nobody's going to buy it. But if I do, hey, here's a big crossover. This character Punchline I created is the girlfriend of the Joker. Oh, well, there's already a...
Oh, yeah. Book was going for...
audience. People know the character.
Book was going for $50 on eBay before anybody even shipped.
The other thing that we need to think about as comic fans, and I kind of made this observation a decade ago, physical things are going away. The new Xbox, I forget what it's called, but the new version of the Xbox, there are going to be two versions of it. One that plays discs and one that doesn't. All your games are in the cloud. The Nintendo Switch, they have some games on disc, but most of the games, I want to play the older games, I want this. Nope, they're all digital. Disney is no longer going to be putting out 4K discs because 4K didn't do well. But they're also pushing people to digital. Why?
I'd like to really
Because
see.
you don't have to manufacture anything.
I would really like to see what the rates are for digital. The last thing I heard, and I don't know if it was, I forget the creator, is he said that his payment for whatever book he published was pretty much the same, the solid publishing versus the downloaded side, but he never really could tell how he was making money on the downloads.
Yeah, because they don't have to announce. There's no way you can get those numbers.
Yeah, and
other than what they tell you.
Side, yeah, physical side's easy. Well, I sold X number of books. So and again, as much as maybe it's just me being an old fart, I just don't see the digital being that much better unless you create. There were some comics in Marvel Universe that were made to be looked at digitally. Otherwise, the classic panel layout in comics is very hostile on a computer screen. I know there was a guy at work who he specifically bought this giant iPad type thing, and I forget what he bought, saying this is a better way of reading comics online. But a whole new generation is going to have to learn how to publish comics online versus doing it for comic books. We've seen that it can be done. I mean, every so often I go off about Love and Capes by Thomas Zahir because he makes his a four grid gag type panel, which is easy to look at online and then easy to replicate into a graphic novel or a comic book when he was doing comic books first. Again, not being an artist, I can't really say much other than as a consumer, I really don't like digitals on my computer. I'm looking at my computer screen now. It's 17 inches, but it's lengthwise, not vertical.
Let's talk about other media, though, Joe. 20 years ago, after you went to the comic shop, you'd go over to Best Buy, and you'd buy a CD and a DVD. Now go into Best Buy. CDs, tiny section. DVDs, smaller.
But streaming music and a movie or a TV show is a very different visual experience than trying to do a digital comic book.
I know that. You know that. But corporate people go, wait a minute. Streaming, we still own it. We still control it. You can see it, but you're paying us in order to see that. That's a stream of money to us.
That's why I'm curious.
If we sell you something, we don't get any more money out of you. But if we sell you a subscription to something,
that's why
we
I want to
get money out of you every month. That's why DVD sales are dead, but Netflix and HBO Max and Peacock and Hulu.
We'll talk all these wonderful things when we get to freaking. But the bottom line still is, yeah, you're big on digital, and I would love to. We don't get a lot of feedback unless we, mess up or I make an error, which I usually regret the error. But I don't see my kids who like comics. I don't see them downloading comic books. I don't see them looking at digital comic books. I see them doing a lot of digital streaming and movies. And, a long time ago, I laughed the fact that, okay, I got a nice, 60-inch television, high screen definition. I've got my DVDs. I got my Blu-ray. I've got all the Family Guy. No, they just downloaded $1 a piece and look at it on their phone. But again, I'm not convinced. I'm not saying it's coming, but I don't see millions and millions of kids downloading the what's the big ass graphic novel? Dog
Man.
I don't see that being downloaded. It might be being downloaded, but I don't buy that there's 5 million kids that downloaded it. And again, that's because I don't know. Maybe they are, but I don't see it. So again, there's a market that's there. These kids will buy the graphic novels. the question is, are they downloading it? Or will they download it?
Here's the point that you are missing and most people miss. My opinion, your opinion, those kids' opinion, they don't matter.
It's not an opinion.
I
need to know what's the dollar. I need the dollar signs. I mean, you and I have watched this. You and I watched this back when I had Hot Comics, where we would, I can't remember the name of the magazine, the video magazine we'd get. Yeah. And everybody was fretting over the video stores were fretting that, oh my God, we're losing this stream because the studios want to sell VHS tapes cheaply. Way back then, for a quick history, you bought a VHS tape, it was $80, which is why it was cheaper to go rent it. But then they suddenly realized, was it ET through Sears or somebody sold a videotape cheap and sold millions of them, and insane copies of them. And suddenly the studios realized, hey, we can sell these things cheap. To them, it's like what you're saying. They're looking at it like, oh, this is another revenue stream we can open up. Again, I'm curious. Yeah, that's fine. Great. Digital revenue stream. Is it viable? It might be. I mean, I don't see a lot of magazines being sold or newspapers being sold.
But if you are Warner Brothers, we took our music and we don't have to produce physical stuff anymore. We took our movies, you don't have to produce physical stuff anymore. We're taking our TV. In 5 years, right now, we talked a little about wrestling earlier on, and I'm going to use this as an example, Joe. A year ago, WWE was averaging between 2.5 and 3 million viewers. And on USA, that was the number, it was always in the top 5 of cable TV entertainment shows. Now WWE is averaging between 1.7 and 2 million viewers. Where is it on the average of entertainment shows? It's still in the top 5. That audience is just fleeing. Over at NBC Universal, owned by Comcast, Peacock launched, and they have said flat out, future of our networks is streaming. Yes, we have NBC Sports, and we have this, and we have this, and we have this, and we have NBC, and all that. They're looking at maybe shows would debut on Peacock and then rerun on the network later. Think about that. You're going to have network TV shows that will debut on your streaming service, and then they'll fill time on your broadcast network.
I understand.
Or with USA.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, so
all that makes sense. I just don't see
on a comic level, but this is why the decision was made.
No, I know that, but I'm just saying.
Agree with it.
I don't see how it can happen. And again, I would love to hear from somebody that's not 50 that is streaming comic books. Again, maybe they can, I've seen it on Marvel Unlimited where this is a comic made for streaming. But I mean, I'm sitting here with a pile of comics. I'm looking at my computer screen. I just don't see it. Again, maybe some people like it. Okay, zoom in on this panel, zoom in on the next panel. Or maybe that's the way they'll have to do it. Every panel pops up and then you zoom to the next one. But what I'm seeing,
a tablet or a phone, because even desktop sales are down. People are consuming their media on tablets and phones.
But what I'm seeing
are perfect for those screens.
A comic page on a computer screen doesn't work.
But it does on a tablet.
No, it still doesn't work without zoom. But if you do a panel, again, splash pages, thing of the past. You can't do a good splash page. But if you, you almost want to go back. Guys, dig out your old Kirby Ditko books. Learn that, what was it? 9-panel grid, 6-panel grid? That may be
did the 4 or 6, Ditko like the 9.
Yeah, maybe that's the way to do it. You're not going to you're not be able to do big splash pages. Maybe, I don't know. But the way you're making comics now is not going to work. Again, you don't have to worry about it. You just have to make the comic. It's the higher up that I got to figure out how to digitalize it. Because I know, what was that big ass crossover when I was stuck in Kansas? Oh, Avengers versus X-Men, or X-Men versus Avengers, depending on. And again, I downloaded issue 12 just because I wasn't going to wait, 3 months to see it. And at the time, they had an Ultimate Spider-Man you could download that was really cool because it interacted with the screen. Spider-Man would pop forward and you'd see word balloons and whatever. And then I went and looked at the comic, and it was a chore to read. Because again, maybe this is just my age showing, but it's like, okay, now I have to perfectly get that. Imagine a comic panel, and it's not the perfect 4:6:9, but it's kind of the big splashy artist panel, and it's like, okay, what am I looking at? Oh, that's the foot of a previous panel. Okay, I got a sideline over to this. It just doesn't work. You're gonna have to, again, maybe as a creator, you're up to the challenge. And let me just pull a comic at random here. Okay, let's see what I got. What do I got next to me? Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man. All right, Sandman. See, 1, 2, 3. Yeah, the first page has got 2 little tiny 1x2 panels on top, and then a huge 7x6 panel. That would be a pain to read. The next panel, you've got your panels going all the way across the page, but it's only an inch tall. On a comic, that might work. Yeah, no, it's creators. It's up to you to make this work, because I just don't see how you're going to convert what you're doing in your comic books now to what could be on the screen without a lot of adjusting. Or again, maybe they'll make an automatic software that will automatically adjust the panel for me as I click on it. There, I just gave you another $1 million idea. How to get Cranky Joe to embrace digital.
One of the things
and I do,
about the digital book world, though, they have been talking forever about how eventually digital books will take over printed books. I am a huge fan of digital books. I'll be honest. I'm a huge fan of digital books simply because books take up space. And I just want to read. I'm 56 now. I guarantee that 90% of the books I read, I'm not going to read a second time.
Yeah.
Just want to read it. Just want to get some entertainment for the afternoon. However, digital hit a point and then stayed there. Even though Amazon has Kindle Unlimited, where you can, there are 2 types of Kindle Unlimited. First is, if you're an Amazon Prime member, you can borrow books up to a certain number a month at a time. There's Kindle Unlimited, where you can borrow as many books as you want. You can return them, etc., etc. But it hit that peak and it stayed there. And then during the pandemic, book sales went up because people were stuck at home. So the point the point you keep cutting me off of is, you've got this guy at Warner Brothers who's looked across his empire and said, streaming is the future. And everyone will go along with this. It doesn't matter what you or I think. He has said that's their future. What DC has to do is figure out how can they do that, if they're able to do that. And what they did was put people in charge of DC who came from those realms. Not because they think we're going to convert, not because of any of this, but because he's looked over and said, look at my streaming audio, look at my streaming video, look at my streaming this, look at my streaming that, everything will do this. That's what you deal with when you're in a corporate structure. So if you're a comic creator, you're going to have to look and go, do I want that vision? Do I want a different vision? Do I want Marvel? Marvel seems to be just doing what Marvel does. Disney is leaving them alone. Do I want to go to Image, where almost all of the work is on my shoulders? Yes, I get more of the money, but I've also got to be a businessman. I've got to be a contract negotiator. I've got to be my own editor. I've got to, look over production. I have to have a business plan for every book I put out. Some people are really good at that, and some people are not. I remember the self-publishing thing. You had people like Dave Sim. He knew the business. Then you guys like Stephen Bessette, who really great comic creator, really great comic he did through self-publishing. Tyrant did not know business. It went away. How many of those self-publishers they didn't know business, so after 6, 7, 8 issues, they were gone? Because I've been putting this book out and it's not making any money because I don't know how to contain my costs, and I don't know anything about printing presses, and I don't know about how to get stuff into all these different catalogs, and I don't know business. Most creators don't know business. Those who do really, really well at image. Look at Jim Lee. Jim Lee had a mind for business. Even when the comic market took a downturn, Wildstorm did very well, to the point where he was able to sell it to DC. Meanwhile, Rob Liefeld sold better than Jim Lee. Business took a downturn. He didn't know what to do. He'd overextended himself, and he was pretty much gone. And now, no matter what you think of Rob Liefeld, he's kind of a hanger-on in the comic business because he doesn't have a regular gig anywhere.
See, I'm gonna steer. See, those are two creators right there. I'll steer back to the digital thing. I don't see Rob Liefeld's art translating to digital. I don't see Todd McFarlane's art translating to digital. It's kind of like a comic strip guy. Al Cap could not have done Little Abner under the terms that comic strips have to publish in newspapers right now. There's almost no way his art which was gorgeous. His lines were beautiful. I mean, to this day, I swear I discovered women's breasts by looking at Daisy May's 1970s curvature. No idea why she was drawn so voluptuously, but again, trying to read his 1970 stuff is pretty laborious anyways. Yeah. But I mean, there was a reason why Doonesbury said, if you're going to publish me, you cannot shrink me down. So some adapted. That's why you get real simplistic drawings. Or maybe that's why Peanuts are so well thought of today, because he always was simplistic. He never did have to go down.
He was one of the first to do a very simplistic strip.
Yeah.
And newspapers then realized that they could shrink strips, and they told everybody else to adapt to that.
Yeah, maybe 10 years from now, we'll look at our 20th anniversary, and we'll all be talking, these are the digital comics I'm downloading next week. It'll probably come to that. But again, everything you said, I agree with everything you said about television, audio, and books. I didn't get a chance to say it, but when you were talking books, yeah, I download books. I read the books. I want to read a book once. The big negative is I can't tell you, hey, this history of Sesame Street was amazing. You should read it. I can't give you the physical copy to do it. I can't see it happening in comics without a major change. Maybe this is the change. Or maybe I'll die happy and I'll have, I'll still have my comic books to read.
And digital comics, how many people have said that they're going into it and they don't make a profit? Nobody was a bigger name in comics than Mark Waid. And Mark Waid started his digital comic book company, everything online, Thrillbent. And a couple years later, he even sold his comic book collection to finance it. What's Mark Waid doing now? Working at working at Marvel, working at Humanoids. Thrillbent is gone.
Looks like a lot of Humanoids is collapsing.
He couldn't figure out a way to make it profitable.
Well, even their guys, to go back to wrestling, PW Insider, they're like, yeah, but they make their money through people subscribing.
And ads.
Ads aren't even that big a thing as it was in the beginning, back when, before they even decided to go off from their own and do it themselves. It's like the golden age of internet ads are kind of gone.
And a lot of the problem with that is that there was so much money in the beginning that everybody gave their stuff away for free. All the newspapers gave their stuff away for free. And then when they tried to institute a paywall, people went, wait a minute. I've been getting this for free for 5 years. What do you mean you're going to make me pay for it now? Screw that. I'll go somewhere else.
And it's not even like they're asking a lot, but people are just so used to, wait, this was free.
Well, you can't charge somebody for something they got for free in the past. One of the reasons why cable TV took so long wasn't because, we had to string cable. No, if there was money in it, they would have strung the cable. It's that people were like, no, I bought my TV. When I buy my TV, I get to watch TV. Just like when I bought my radio, I got to listen to radio. You know me, I like the old drive-in double features that I get from Sinister Cinema, and I watch a lot of the intermission stuff that's available online. I can't tell you how many ads there are in those for, that don't make your TV become a money-eating monster. Fight cable TV. And these are from the 50s and 60s into the 70s.
And that was the problem. TV was set up as a model to, we give you the programs free. Remember, it used to be Philip Morris is proud to present whatever theater,
The Texaco Star Theater with Milton Berle. We think of it as the Milton Berle show. No, it was the Texaco Star Theater. Or especially when you listen to old radio, what it is, a advertiser would buy a time slot and they'd say, oh, okay, well, we want Jack Benny in our time slot. We want Fred Allen in our time slot. Or, back even into the 60s, Winston Cigarettes presents the Flintstones.
Yeah. No, TV, this was all done because they wanted to sell TV sets, and they did that because they realized they give away the programs for free. How do you make the programs? You get these guys to sponsor it.
Same way they did with radio. It was the radio model brought to TV. And that's still a big part of it, except now you're paying for TV that has ads.
Which initially you didn't. It was, oh, no, it's all free.
Or if I'm paying for cable, there shouldn't be. I still remember when I first got cable and there were so many ads. It's like, I am paying for this. Why is there advertising? WWE has their free tier now with advertising. I guess Netflix tried an experiment in a couple of markets where they were like, okay, we're going to cut our costs if you accept ads. And people were furious. Or Hulu. I would love to have the stats of how many people have Hulu with ads. Because if I'm paying for something and there are ads, it's going to make me mad.
Yeah, I mean, I had that. I had a Hulu account, which was, I think, a free one, and it was driving me nuts because they'd break into ads. It wasn't that they broke into ads, but they would break in at the goofiest, shittiest times. And then and the murderer. But here's Elpo dog food, blah, blah, blah. I don't even know if they make that anymore. And then they come back and you're like, okay, you just totally ruined it. And then I realized, oh, that's because my daughter has her own account. Hers was the freebie. So I just signed in on hers now.
Well, and not the other thing, there's Pluto TV. And the big complaint people had about that was every 15 minutes, you would get a block of 3 ads. I'm okay with a block of 3 ads every 15 minutes for a free service.
And it gives you at least a download. It tells you, okay, you got 30 seconds.
Yeah, but they wouldn't. The ads were timed. They weren't, oh, this is a break in the show. No, it's okay. It's 15 minutes. Doesn't matter what's going on. Boom, here's the ad.
Yeah. Even to this day, I can watch Yellow Submarine from the Beatles. And when it used to run on Saturday afternoon, I know exactly the beat where they would break in to have the commercials. And even when I'm watching it now on Blu-ray, I keep waiting. Okay, here's when an ad would hit. Here's when an ad would hit. It's just I'm so ingrained because I watched it so many times when I lucked out and found it. That it's just a beat. No, I stopped watching Pluto television exactly for that reason, because it was just infuriating. You get that commercial break, they'd come back, oh, there's their commercials. It's like, really, you guys? No, they don't, because they get the ads for free. They run their commercials. It's a low-cost way of doing it.
Well, they fixed the ads, thankfully.
Yeah, maybe, but I'm still not coming back. For a different reason. Maybe because the pay guys, I got so much shit to watch, I'll never get through them.
Yeah, there's that too. But if I want to sit down and watch some Mystery Science Theater 3000 or Riff Tracks or some slow TV, I'm heading over to Pluto TV. And so for us comic fans, there are tons of questions that we're not going to have answers to because nobody at DC has answers to. This hit them upside the head.
Yeah.
They didn't know. And I'll tell you why I know they didn't know. Because, Joe, would you have moved out to L.A. if you knew you were only going to have a job for 2 years?
That's corporate America for you. Just all those people that are screwed.
Horrible. Oh, think all the people who moved out, the big move from D.C. out to New York, and the people who stayed in New York, they're like, well, you're killing your career. Well, now you're out in L.A. where there's no publishing. There is no publishing in L.A. Publishing is all in New York. Are you going to be able to get jobs in the entertainment industry? Not during this pandemic, because Hollywood is shut down. They're not making stuff. That's why that's why a lot of the streaming stuff, they're saying, okay, we're going to bring the streaming stuff over to networks because they can't produce anything in the U.S. And the biggest thing that people need to remember about DC Comics is it's not whether the comics sold well or worse. The comics are actually selling better than they have in a few years. It's because a new corporate owner came in, and when a new corporate owner comes in, the first thing he does is remake the corporation and get rid of the people who worked for the guy before. That's why I mentioned at the beginning of the show, the guy in charge of TNT, gone. Why? Well, he was with the old regime. The whole, all of the people with Bob Harris, gone. Why? He was with the old regime. And if you say, oh, they just do that in Hollywood. No, they do it everywhere. They do it every corporation. When the new CEO comes in, he clears out the people who worked for the other guy because they may be loyal to him, or they may be gunning for him, or they may feel that they were passed over. He's going to bring in his guys, or he's going to promote people. And the reason you promote people is because when like Marie Javins, she's going to be real loyal to the new CEO. Why? Well, she was in this job and she got promoted way up out of the blue. That's my guy. Why? Because he saw my talent and he promoted me. Right, wrong, doesn't matter. It's how the corporate world works. And if you're working in the corporate world, that's what you got to deal with. And if you're a comic creator, you got to be ready for that stuff. How many comic creators do we know who, oh, I'm friends with this editor and this editor and this editor, and I'm always going to have work. And then one of those editors leaves, and one of those editors retires, and one of those editors gets fired, and we never hear from that guy again. We never hear from that comic creator. I'm going to give you a name, Joe, and I swear to you, the fact that this guy isn't inking any comics blows my mind. Did you know Terry Austin hasn't been inking comics for years?
I would suspect that because I haven't seen him in anything.
Yeah. And he was a guy who, best inker in comics, but all the editors that he worked with retired, went away. He's been around for a while, so he's getting a higher rate. Well, let's see. If I hire him, I'm going to go over budget on this book, so I better hire this new guy. I better hire this younger guy. Oh, I'm going to hire my friend. I'm going to hire this kid I saw at a convention who I'm going to be able to get for $35 a page rather than $120 a page. So if you're a comic creator, you've got to keep your eye going. And even though you would rather just draw, If you're working at a corporation, you always got to think corporation. I work at a corporation that is being bought by another company. This is the second time I've gone through it, and I've only been at this company for 4 years. The first thing I did when I heard that we were being bought, I went and I looked, okay, what does this company do when they buy other companies? Do they clear them out? Do they absorb them? Are they one of those companies that strips a company for all of its assets and then gets rid of it, then spins off everything and gets rid of it? Thankfully, no, this is a company that's just trying to get more market share. So they're like, okay, we have this much market share. If we buy this company, we'll have their market share and ours. That'll make us the number 3 in the field rather than the number 5 in the field. It's kind of what happened with Sprint and T-Mobile. They were both, okay, we're numbers 4 and 5, but if we combine, we become number 3.
So the bottom line, the summary of this here podcast, fuck DC.
Joe says, fuck DC. I think we're going to see massive changes, and the biggest change you're going to see is if it ain't connected to Superman, Batman, Justice League, or an upcoming movie, it ain't going to come out.
Nope.
Now, they may keep strip mining their...
No, summary. This isn't too much of a summary.
They may keep strip mining, but next week when we look at DC... Not next week, next month, when we look at what DC's publishing, you can see the cuts. Because yesterday, DC released their solicitation. It is mighty thin.
In other words, fuck DC. Because they're sticking their nose out at you.
You know who's never going to stick their nose out at you, Joe?
Never.
These guys, our sponsors. Believe it or not, kids, this here podcast has sponsors. And that sponsor, since day one, is DreamHost.com. DreamHost.com is the best, bar none, web host in the whole known universe. And if you need a website, head on over to DreamHost.com, put in code CRAYZ, that's K-R-A-Y-Z, and get $20 off your first year. Now, if you would like to advertise here on any of the Solitaire Rose Network podcasts, you can. Just email me at solitairerosenetwork@gmail.com, subject advertising. Also, head on over to eBay and look for user Crazy, K-R-A-Y-Z. That's Joe Crazy Writer, who's always telling us about the eBay in every episode of Crazy Comics and Stories. If you would like to contact us, you can do so. You can give us a call at 952-856-0519. Leave a message and we'll play it on the show. Or you can send us an email at solitairerosenetwork@gmail.com. Thanks. You know who else isn't going to stick their nose out at you?
Oh, probably about one of the other dozen podcasts you like to do.
I was going to say we here at the Solitaire Rose Radio Network.
You mean you?
And I do podcasts for other people too.
Because you're nuts.
If you go over to PW Insider, every Wednesday you'll see that I do coverage of All Elite Wrestling. Although this week, I don't do coverage of All Elite Wrestling on Wednesday because it's on Saturday at 6 p.m. Because of basketball, they moved it to Saturday. But if you become an elite member of PW Insider, which you should, you get myself and Anthony Pyrus doing audio recaps of the show. It's about an hour long. We tell you about the show. We break down why things happened the way they did and what we thought of it. And while I'm doing all of that, Joe is sitting on his butt at his computer, staring at a screen, putting stuff up on the eBays.
Damn straight. And I'm not even going to talk about the things that I've sold. I mean, I've sold about 100 plus items this week, mainly because everything we've talked about that I sold have been titles and things that we've talked about before. I think we've talked about Gunhawks, right? The comic from Marvel? 70s?
No, we have not.
Really? Because, I mean, I had a bunch of issues online, and they're starting to pick through them. Basically, Gunhawk series was an attempt by Marvel to tell fast-paced Western tales and make some worthy moral points, all and avoid the curse of the cliche. It introduced Reno Jones and Kid Cassidy. And I think the white kid was Cassidy and the black was Reno Jones, which in the 70s was probably real, what would you say, progressive? Oh, those damn social justice warriors trying to make a black guy and a white guy get together, just like that dumb Cosby TV show. What was it called? I can't remember.
I Spy.
I Spy, yeah. But these were two loyal friends. They saved each other lives countless times. In their ventures, they've been joined by and fought against men of many different skin colors, white, black, red. All case, the point is clear. It's the contents of a man's heart, not his skin color, that decides his worth. So, and this was back in the 70s. It's not like, they nowadays, social justice warrior, what was the diversity? Oh my God, that never happens. So yeah, run of those.
Real reason why you said they did it for fast-paced Western, blah blah blah. You want to know the real reason why they did it?
Why?
Well, look, this company's publishing a Western, and this company's publishing a Western, and this company's publishing 2 or 3 Westerns. We better get some Westerns out there.
Yeah, we need some Westerns, damn it. I sold my original copies of JLA Avengers 1, 2, 3, 4 because they are very, very expensive. And I have the big ass compendium. Not a compendium. It has a compendium in it. The Absolute. So I do have it if I need to read it. And the fun thing with that one, it went overseas via eBay's global shipping. Speaking of shipping, Cory and I are leftists, dirty, rotten liberals, socialists to the heart. If not, it does squeak through occasionally. We try not to talk a lot of politics. But you got to wonder what's going on now, because everybody's up in arms because the Bobo put in charge of the post office is basically gutting it, turning off high-speed sorting machines, canning overtime. Yeah, he's got ties to private industry, that wants to take over. These guys have been licking their chops since the Nixon years to try to take over FedEx or take over the postal office. I said FedEx because FedEx was lobbying way back in the 70s. Hey, we can do a better job than the post office. And yeah, the post office is a government agency. It's like the Titanic. It takes a long time to turn, but occasionally they do something right. I remember when they started getting in these high-speed sorting machines. I don't know if you've even gotten a real letter in the mail, Cory, but you see those little barcodes on the very bottom underneath the address? Yeah. That's part of the high-speed sorting machine. They can do 35,000 letters an hour. Before it used to be, and I still see pictures of them, a letter would stop in front of somebody, they type in the zip code, zip, zip, zip. You'd have postal ladies doing that. But, that went the way of telephone operators. Hello, can I connect your call? Or the guys who went up and down elevators. What floor would you like, sir? Or heck, even pay booth attendants. Heck, even cashiers at Target, Walmart, and your favorite store are kind of disappearing in the age of automation. But for some reason, the Bobo, and I'm not going to get in why, you can figure it out yourself, depending on which side of your sports team you're on. He came in and turned them all off. And this ain't like me turning off a computer. You just don't turn them on. They're complex machines, and they've gotten better over time where they can actually read chicken scrawl, the types that Cory and I write, which is saying something if you've ever seen Cory and I's writing. As that's happening, eBay's sending me a note. Oh, you better maybe think of switching from Postal Service to maybe FedEx or UPS. Meanwhile, guess who eBay's, as a corporation, is giving a lot of money to? Which side? Well, we're not getting political here on this, but all I can say is I've been shipping stuff via the post office, and it's still being shipped in record time, at least the packages in that. I feel it's being set up for failure, so when it all collapses around election time, the privatization guys can swoop in and go, see, they can't do it, we can do better. Oh, by the way, do you guys remember, Cory, when I was up in Dillingham and Barrow, Alaska?
Yeah.
FedEx, UPS don't deliver out there. They have UPS, the postal service, do it. They
Yeah.
ship it over to them. You know, people in the middle of the mountain range or middle of rural areas where they don't have carriers, yeah, you just go to the postal office. Take away them. Oh, you just shut down a postal area. Now these people don't have it. They're purposely trying to destroy something that works. And it just makes me mad. Not going to stop me from putting stuff on eBay, though. KRAYZ 24/7. Hell, after my rant, you may never, ever want to buy anything from me again. Which is fine. That means somebody else got my new Teen Titans Volume 2, number 1 through 6 collection. And at a very, very cheap price. And I got to say, even the guy who scored on my JLA vs. Avengers, $50. And they're going for a lot more expensive. Because, again, Marvel, DC, they ain't talking. They ain't going to republish it. Oh, well. Come get some.
And now we come to my favorite part of the show. No. No, not where I choked to death on an Altoid.
Ooh.
No, it's Freaking and Geeking Joe. What are you freaking on? Other than what you've already said.
Oh, yeah. No, I'm back to work full time. And, part of the rant, too, also goes with TSA because there's been plenty of people in Congress that want to privatize TSA. The only reason they haven't gotten around to doing it is because, first of all, Homeland Security tends to be one of the few parts of the budget that they keep putting money into. Even during we got to cut everything. It's always defense and Homeland Security because if you cut those guys, and believe me, they need to be cut, you're soft on terrorism. Ooh, you want our enemies to win. That's why we got to give the Pentagon more and more billions, even though they lost $7 trillion and don't know where it went. So for some reason, we're back to work full time. Flight loads are up. Maybe not. I don't know. It depends who you believe. I just think they don't want to pay us any more admin leave. My internet's out. We had a hell of another batch of storms come ripping through Minnesota last night and tons and tons of lightning. I turned on the computer at 4 o'clock to look at what was coming, and this squall line that was coming at us had 5 tornadoes in it. One of them directly east of the airport. I mean, by about 50 miles, which is a long ways. And that cell that had it petered out when it finally got here. But we did get a wave through. It went through pretty fast. Lots of lightning, lots of rain, 60-mile-an-hour winds. It's almost like a normal weekend here. Yeah, let's screw up your weekend. Although it is really nice today, so that's kind of fun. But my internet's out. They know about it. The only reason I'm able to podcast here with my bud is because my kids have their internet souped up to something other than where mine is. So, but all that wonderful stuff about Cory saying, oh, yeah, we can digitalize this and stream that. You can't stream a fucking thing when your internet's out. So think about that before you get rid of your DVDs and your CDs and your comic books. Oh, by the way, when the power's out, you might need a lantern or candle or something, but that's a different subject.
A Green Lantern?
It depends if you swore before the power went to zero. Cory, have you seen those ads on Facebook about animation legends where you can own original artwork used in the production of various cartoons?
Yes, you've talked about that in the past.
Yeah. Oh, did I talk about I actually ordered it?
No.
Yeah. I got suckered in because I love Sabrina the Teenage Witch, and they were talking about how they have A cells, which are main figures, B cells, which are whatever, and C cells, which they usually don't use because you can't tell what they did. So the higher number of cells you buy, the more like their top tier 100, 30 page, whatever, or 30 cell thing, they'll give you all A cells. So I did it for Sabrina the Teenage Witch, and I got a body shot of her with absolutely zero face. And do you remember why? Hint, Filmation.
Yeah, because Filmation would use the same body and then just animate the face.
Yeah.
Just save money.
So I got this cell of Sabrina with no face, which sucks because when you look at their thing online, you always seeing these are the A cells, which is a full body with face. The other 2 cells, one's a character I've never seen before, no face, and the third one looks like a gust of wind. I'm like, really, guys, for what all these? And again, maybe they can't because this animated film, even as limited as Filmation, has hundreds of thousands of cells that they animated. But you think, if you're going to give me an A cell, at least you could put like the C cell face with the A cell body. So buyer beware if you get sucked into this. I'm looking on Facebook now. They're advertising the original Back to the Future cells. So again, I don't know if anybody else that got it. I'm just taking a quick look at the comments. Some people are like, I got mine and love it. I got thinking this is wrong, blah, blah, blah. So yeah, buyer beware. I'm not happy with what I got, but whatever. So the only thing I've read recently in comics that I don't like, the Empire crossover. Maybe I'm jaded. Maybe I should wait for the Omnibus. Oh my gosh, I read 1 through 3. Boring. But you know how, Cory, you read a mystery and you already know by the second chapter who's the killer is?
Yeah.
I figured out, oh yeah, the Cody are going to be the bad guys, and they're going to take out the Skrulls and all the bad guys, and they're going to attack Earth and blah 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 before it happened, just because of the way it was set up. And usually I like ones like this, especially when they're going back to characters we haven't seen. And again, I'll revisit it once. How many issues is this? 5, 6?
6, and it's weekly.
And most of the miniseries attached to it are gone. The X-Men one was intriguing just because what did they call the race? Koitai, is that right?
Yeah, the Kotai.
Kotai. They noticed that Katoa that the X-Men are hiding. Hey, that's plant-based. So that got my attention. But yeah, I don't know. I may have to do like War of the Realms I read, and I was really underwhelmed. Although now that I'm reading the Aaron books, and they've only been 2 so far, and I read some of the crossovers, I'm like, oh, okay, well, this build up over 7 years, so maybe by the time 7 years hits, I would be chomping at the bit. I have no idea where Empire came from. I'm pleasantly aware that I know all the characters, including Swordsman.
It kind of came out of nowhere.
Yeah, okay, so maybe that's my problem too. It didn't really build up to anything. Or worse, it was a big build up and I read the Road 2 and I was all excited and then nothing shipped for 3-4 months. So, oh well. I got a lot of freaking today. Cory, what are you freaking on?
Not nearly as much as you.
Which is weird because usually you got lots of freaking.
WWE is just goddamn unwatchable. I tried to get caught up on it when I had a couple of nights off this week. With Raw, I was able to make it about an hour and a half before I went, I just can't. I can't. I'm tapping out. The one Asian wrestler they have, now he has a bunch of ninjas. They had a match where to win the match, you had to pull someone's eye out of their head. I can suspend my disbelief, but no one is going to pull somebody's eye out of their head. And I don't mind that they're in the performance center all the time, but nothing is moving forward. It's okay, this guy's going to fight this guy for 8 minutes. This guy's going to fight this guy for 8 minutes. This guy's going to fight this guy for 8 minutes. Because they don't want to have matches that go on too long. Now, meanwhile, Ring of Honor's coming back. Yay. All Elite Wrestling, they usually have 4 or 5 matches in a 2-hour show, so the matches go longer. New Japan Pro Wrestling is back. But man, WWE's ratings are falling, and it's for good reason. The shows are just unwatchable. And I don't get it because they're the only game in town. Until recently, there were no other sports. Most of the stuff that's on TV are reruns. This is when you say, all right, we got a lot of captive audience out there. Let's grab them. So either A, they don't give a shit because they're making so much money they don't have to, or B, they don't know how to grab an audience anymore. Either way, It's just unwatchable. Comic-wise, I ran a few numbers while you were talking on the eBay, Joe. For November, DC has 17 ongoing series and Marvel has 33. That's not counting miniseries, one-shots, reprints. Nope. DC has 17 continuing series. Marvel has 33 continuing series. That's it. If I were a comic shop and I didn't diversify 2, 3, 4 years ago so that I had more than one revenue stream, I would seriously be looking at how to get out of that. Because if DC, DC, I would imagine you're not going to get any more miniseries. After the death metal thing, I can't see them doing any more miniseries because, hey, miniseries sell worse than regular series. Unless it's a Batman miniseries, no one's going to buy it. So if I were a comic shop, boy, I sure hope you got into gaming or books or video games or collectibles or something so that you're not dependent on just comics. Because, man, if you would have told me at the beginning of the year that comic sales were higher than they've ever been, but comic shops wouldn't be getting a piece of it, I would be shocked. But comic sales are higher than they've ever been, and more comic shops aren't getting a part of it because it's not the meat and potato superhero stuff that's driving this change. And then the last thing that I am freaking on is that my office job, we've been on lockdown since March. March is when things really got serious and we're not getting out of it. There are parts of the country where they're open, but businesses aren't really open. And you know how I can tell that, Joe? Because anybody who calls with a problem, they go from 0 to 90 in 30 seconds. People are mad, they're stressed out, they're freaking out. Anytime you have to tell them no, they lose their minds. It's so stressful dealing with people lately. And I read more and more stories of people freaking out in stores and people freaking out while driving. We're all just so stressed because nothing's changing. Nothing's getting better. Nothing's moving forward. No one is in charge on the pandemic. And the people who are in charge are saying, remember what I said when it would go away in April? It'll go away. State after state is just not doing anything about it. And it feels like we're never going to be out of this. It really feels like this is never going to end. And now you've got all the people, there's no college football. Yeah, there's no college football because 4 months ago you said you had to get your hair done. What are you geeking on, Joe?
I scored me a ticket to the Minnesota State Fair Food Parade. As you know, there is no State Fair this year. And I guess I wouldn't have gone anyways because, again, I'm high risk, so I'm not going to go purposely get myself exposed. However, they decided they sold a limited amount of tickets to the parade where we go through the fairgrounds and we'll be able to go up to vendors like the Sweet Martha cookies, sweet Martha, and buy, they already put on their website how many, you can only buy 6 tubs of their delicious cooked cookies. So it's kind of an interesting idea. I was surprised.
And there's dinosaurs there.
No, right now there are. They'll be gone by the time we get there, unfortunately.
Oh.
Yeah, no fun. But what I'll talk about it when it happens. It's actually 2 weeks from as we're recording this here podcast, so that'll be kind of fun. We're getting Slurpees back. 7-Eleven's returning to Minnesota because they just bought out Speedy, formerly known as Super America, which was the reason 7-Eleven left Minnesota to begin with, because Super America was coming in and kind of was going to put them out of business. So what's old is new again. We'll be able to buy Slurpees. Speaking of geeking, I did a number of geeking As you know, last week, I believe I was complaining how I did not get anything out of February. So either because they didn't tell me I didn't place the order, I didn't place it, or which I did, or it didn't go through, or whatever. I hit the source up right away last week and got about 90% of the books I was missing. Later that week, I went down and I hit the Dreamer's Vault. Dreamer's Vault in South St. Paul, which was 207 13th Avenue South in South St. Paul, formerly the Level Up Games. Now, Cory, did you know they have not one, not two, not three, not four, not five? Yeah, okay, five. They have 5 locations in the metro area.
I did not know that.
I didn't either. So, and most of their stuff was newer stuff. So, I mean, I was delighted to find issue number 2 of Jinx World's It's Dead, folks. Bendis Mac compilation called Cover. And because for some reason I didn't get 2 or 3 because I didn't order them and then I never picked them up. So I'm only missing 1 now. So I was happy with that. I found a number of other books that were half price. Usually what they do is they got their stuff in back issues and then they have a big selection of newer comics that they're just half pricing. So again, they're not big. Well, they're about, the one I went to is 50% comics, 50% games. They are allowing people to game, but you have to maintain social distancing and you have to reserve the game room. So they don't have to worry about like 500 people showing up at once and all wanting to game. Today, I did a little geeking myself. I went down and visited Eric down in Mind's Eye Comic. He's doing pretty good. I was able to pick up a number of books, including a few that I had sold out that he hooked me up with. One of them was Thor number 5. Cory, you want to be shocked? Go look at the crazy back issue prices on the current Thor series. I think so many people dropped it after Jason Aaron was done that nobody realized just how good the next series was.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And I did. I mean, I did jump on board right away as soon as I read issue 1 at the source. But again, I was missing issue 5, and I figured I'd have to wait for the 3rd print to hit. But he was able to hook me up, which was nice. The only other one I missed out on that I don't think I'll find it from Image, I believe, Adventure Man number 1. Another one that took everybody's surprise. So he hooked me up with an issue number 1 that was 2nd print, which was kind of cool. So some of the other books I'm missing. Hang on a second. Let's see if I can find my list. My list of books. List of books. Oh, here it is. It's down here. I got all these things piled around to share with people. Oh, what fun. I say this because hopefully somebody out there in podcast land knows. Some small press stuff. From Oni, I can't find 7 Days number 7. Maybe it didn't ship. I should probably go look. Over the Ropes number 5, a wrestling miniseries from Mad Cave Studios. And I believe the book's been solicited. So out of DC, I can't find Legion of Superheroes 6, which is really weird. I suppose it was like the last issue that shipped before everybody shut down for 3 months. So everybody was able to catch up on that. But everything else I've been pretty lucky at finding. There was something from, I think, Action Lab called Burnt Rubber, a one-shot that nobody's got, which shouldn't surprise me. And then, of course, New Teen Titans Volume 11, which has a graphic novel I know I can pick up when I want. So I lucked out there, picking up quite a few. From there, I trotted up to Comic College and was able to find a few more issues I was missing. Basketful of Heads, number 7. I also filled in quite a lot of runs on Marvel Fanfare, which I've been meaning to do since I got all geeked on it, re-geeked on it after reading a synopsis of it on Back Issue a while back. Getting to them was crazy. 494 is shut down, eastbound. Somewhere on 62 it's shut down because
eastbound is down.
In order to get to the airport, you've got to go eastbound. Fortunately, Highway 5 is open now,
So you were loaded up and trucking?
Nope, because what happened was when you tried to get off 46th Street to go to Comic College, everybody and their uncle from miles back from that exit on 35W northbound were waiting in the right lane to exit at 46, because that's how
you were trying to do
turn around.
Done.
Nope, I kept driving, and eventually, since all the exits from 46 North are closed, I got into downtown, turned around, and headed south. Unfortunately, southbound 46 is equally as shut down. Again, 2 miles of traffic trying to exit, so I just went to the next exit, Diamond Lake Road, and backtracked to Comic College. But boy, was that a hell of a run. And in between that, I saw, 62 was backed up. They separated, thank God, 62, 35 in the Commons area. But yeah, that was crazy. After that, I decided to head up to the source and ran into Kelly up there. Kelly really feels bad he had to cancel the MCBA con, but I said, no, you made the right call. Things are just out of control. And he said, yeah, the last thing he wanted was a bunch of people to go to the con and be sick. And, I said, we just got to re-gear and go to the next one. It was a little busy. It was busy at the source. I mean, regardless of what's going on with DC, people are in there, families with their kids buying stuff, and the kids are going right for the properties they know, Nightmare Before Christmas, My Little Pony. Yeah, it was very heartening to see a lot of businesses, even a lot of people going into Mind's Eye, a lot of people going into college. So maybe the weekend's the time to go, or avoid, depending on how you like crowds.
I don't.
I know. That's why I said that. And let's see. I'm so excited to talk comics. Let's see. Things I did read, because as you know, I'm back at work, and when I'm out of sight waiting for bags to come my way, I get to read. I read a book called X-Men No More Humans by Mike Carley and Salvador Larroca. And let's see if I can find when this is an original graphic novel in the, very small, 1914, first print. Did you ever read this one, Cory?
What's the name of it again?
No More Humans.
Yes, I did. I thought it was okay.
It was good. I enjoyed it. One thing I really, really liked in the beginning, remember how I always bitched about sometimes you pick up a Marvel graphic novel and you just don't know what in living hell is going on. Who's alive, who's dead, who's doing what? Well, in the beginning, they give a little synopsis here, which is great. Again, if you read this in 2014, it probably didn't need it, but for me, it was a great memory jog, because this occurred back when the X-Men were split in two. Cyclops led the fugitive half. The other half, led by Wolverine, lives in the Jean Grey school. Wolverine and Cyclops are basically not happy with each other. And of course, we got the young X-Men from the past running around. And they do a good job of introducing. I mean, the main villain in this is a love child of Mystique and Wolverine, who I don't ever recall reading before, but they do a good job of synopsing it. And it was a good series. Why a graphic novel for $24.99? I don't know. I don't know how it's sold. I got mine for the blistering price of $3.99 from my good buddy Steve Brown down at Cedar Cliff.
Did he have any new omnibuses?
I didn't. This I bought on one of our previous visits.
Oh, okay.
Just happened to get around to it. So the other book I read American Gods, Volume 3. I tell you, for a hardcover graphic novel, reprinting a comic, adaptating the comic book series based on a novel from Neil Gaiman that you should have already read. Matter of fact, go ahead and pause this here podcast, call up Dreamhaven Books and say you need a copy of American Gods because I've never read it. Read it, come back, and I'll be here. Okay, now that we've gotten that done, I haven't seen, it's on what? American Gods is on what? Stars?
Yes.
Okay, I don't have Stars, so I can't view it, but I didn't read the comic book because I knew I was going to pick up the graphic novel, and I enjoyed the graphic novel. Again, there's a lot they left out. There's so much flavor that Neil Gaiman writes in his books. But Pete Craig Russell, I should have got you at that name. And of course, Scott Hampton, they do such an awesome job visualizing things. And I mean, there's times that they visualize things that I'm like, oh, I hadn't thought of it that way when I was reading it. But again, it's only 3 volumes. All of them are out. I highly, highly recommend it. I had mentioned I was rereading Dreadstar, Jim Starlin's Omnibus that I got off his Kickstarter. I believe you can go to his Facebook page or go onto his Google Jim Starlin. You'll see his website. These may be available in print, but wow, I mean this series again with art by Glennis Ween. It may look like a comic book, but boy, the themes they're running into are definitely. There's a reason why this was in the Epic line, and I mean, I think of it like, oh yeah, the original series that were painted and they were this and they were that, and then the comic series it was comic-y. No, there are definite heavy themes in this. And boy, you anybody want a built-in science fiction property to adapt to streaming? This is it right here. And I'm reading Omnibus 1. I just finished it. I got 2 and 3 upstairs, and then of course I've got all Peter David's in comic form, which I'm waiting for. The other book I'm getting ready to, I started to read, Weird Al Seriously by Lilly E. Hirsch. I bought this one directly, again, off a Facebook ad because, you know me, I'm a Weird Al fan. And this reads more like it gives a good synopsis of his career. And of course, it's always, Weird Al is still back. Weird Al is still, and it's like, Weird Al never went away. He's been doing this for 30 years. Just every time it comes up, he gets everybody's attention, and he's still doing it, which bemuses him because he's like, I never stopped. But it also gets into more why Weird Al works, and it's more of a scholarly read. And she gets into more talking about parody, why parody works, why it doesn't work. And of course, some of it may be, and Cory, I don't know how much Weird Al you listen to. I swear, sometimes I hear newer Weird Al songs before I hear what he's parodying, which is really weird when I walk through like a Target and I'm like, hey, that's the song. Oh, that's the original song that Weird Al based his on. White and Nerdy. I never heard the original. I can't even think of what the original was. Brain lock. But there was like
Riding Dirty.
Yes. And then there's one he calls Tacky. 'Cause I'm tacky, going to a funeral, taking selfies with the deceased. Which
based
is something.
On the song Happy.
Yeah, which I've never heard Happy until I was walking through the source, and it's like, hey. So, I mean, it got to the point where like, oh, Weird Al is parodying a song I heard too. I'm so out of new music now that I hear the Weird Al version before. But yeah, it's a book worth picking up. It's published by Roman and Littlefield. I know I've mentioned it in the past, but like I said, I'm really into it now. Through eBay, I bought, and I unfortunately it's all taped up, so I'm gonna have to be very, very careful on how I rip this some bitch off the cardboard. And okay, let's see, one little fold there, half mint here. No worries, I can resell it as near mint. Nobody pays attention. I went and got me a copy of Gen X 1/2 number 13 that was signed by Larry Hamas, just because I don't have anything in my collection that he signed. And it was cheap enough. And it came from Wizard that way. So you get both the certificate of authenticity. I think one's the Wizard authentication saying this is available only through Wizard Comic Magazine 881. And the other certificate saying, yep, Larry signed it all right. Deal with it. So, yep, even when I'm bored, I'm buying. I think that's it. Other than, I got to tell you, Cory, you know the Electric Teeth, or Dr. Teeth and the Electric Mayhem from the Muppet Show?
Yes.
There was a San Diego Comic-Con exclusive that, you had to buy online. And I was so happy that I got hooked up with a copy of Thor #5 that Eric showed me this. He told me what the price was. I bought it. $120 in addition to everything else I bought from. See, take care of Kray. Kray takes care of you. Lest you think I'm not watching things, the last thing I want to talk about, I finished Star Blazers Space Battleship Yamato 2202. This is the sequel to Star Blazers 2101, which I raved about. I believe I watched that while I was during Hip Watch 2, which I loved. This is based, of course, this is not so much adapted for American audience, but just pretty much through Funimation, I could get the whole set on DVD. And I was able to watch the first one, which I loved. And the second one deals with, of course, the we know it here in the States as the Comet Empire. There they call it more a planet called Telazart is being attacked by a race known as the Galactans. And it's not as straightforward as the original one was. The original one was this guy just takes over the planet, and if he can't take it over, he destroys it. But this they deal more with why does he want to restore? Why does he want to destroy it? And why does this other planet called Telazart? Why do they call to the Yamato crew for aid, and just them, and not the Earth Defense Force? And there is so much more in this series, and it gets more spiritual and more intense and more backstory. I think people who go into it thinking that they just have a straight adaptation with a lot more better animation and characters and fun and whatever, they might be a little confused at it. And even me, I had to rewatch a couple episodes over and over, but it was a lot of fun. I highly recommend it. Again, Space Battleship Yamato 2202. You can get it through Amazon Prime if you want to stream it. I bought the actual DVDs through a DVD Blu-ray combo set, which was nice because they also give me I can do the ability to either listen to dubbing, which is really good, or do the original subtitles, which I'm not opposed to, but the animation is so lush and rich. I wanted to be able to watch that and not be distracted with, what did I just miss? Because I'm reading the subtitles. So I highly recommend both these. Even if you don't, even if you're not big on the original series, or I don't even know if you can get the original series anymore. So that's pretty much it for me. Cory, what you geeking on?
Let's see. The first thing that I've done is on computer gaming. There are tons of free games available. And if you go to Epic Games, they're a game publisher. They give away 2 games every week. Matter of fact, this week they have a new game come out. It's a strategy game called Troy. It's a $45 game, but the first day it was out, you could download it for free if you paid attention. I don't have a lot of time for games, but when I do, free is my very favorite price point. And I use, let's see, I've got Steam, because you have to have Steam, I guess, to play computer games anymore. But I also have Good Old Games, GOG.com, where you can download old games that they have tweaked so that they run on current systems. And I've actually downloaded Icewind Dale #2, which is one of the old Bethesda Dungeons and Dragons games, which I never had time to play. I loaded it on my laptop, and at the group home I'm working at the most now, we have 3 clients who are nonverbal and don't get around much. So, boy, there's a lot of time where you're just sitting there with them watching TV, and the thing that they like the most is watching sports. And I can't comprehend hockey, not a big basketball fan. Baseball puts me to sleep, so if I'm starting to nod off, it's, I better load up the computer and play me some games. I also put a picture of it up. There is a big novel that just came out. It's over 600 pages, called The Living Dead, and it's written by George Romero and a co-writer. And this isn't somebody using George Romero's name to put out a zombie novel. George Romero, since according to the notes in the book, since 1980 was working off and on a huge novel that would go through basically his entire zombie story, using the stuff from Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead, Day of the Dead, Land of the Dead, Diary of the Dead, and Survival of the Dead. Survival of the Dead, which is terrible. And he had written over 250 pages and had a detailed plot outline. And when he found out he had cancer, he and his wife hired a writer and decided, here you go, finish it up. It just came out. I'm about 3 chapters in, and it's wonderful. You can really feel the Romero mark, not just because of the gore, but because of the way he just jams in social commentary. He's much more blatant about it than I am in my zombie novels. And I can tell you right now, 3 chapters in, George Romero hated social media more than I hate anything.
Hugs.
Oh my God, does he hate social media? So that's a good read. I also got caught up on Marvel's Conan stuff. I read the Age of Conan, the Valeria graphic novel, which was very well done. The thing about these Conan books that I'm noticing is people are just knocking themselves out on the art. The art is beautiful, and Richard Isolave, I think is how you pronounce his name, is doing the coloring on them, and he makes it, he's using computer coloring, but man, he makes it look like a cross between Frazetta paintings and Joe Jusko paintings, the way he uses light and color. I also read the first Savage Sword of Conan graphic novel, which was very reminiscent of the Robert E. Howard stuff, where Conan barely escapes death, only to be captured, fights his way free, only to be captured, fights his way free, only to find out that there's a wizard behind everything, fights the wizard. Felt like I was reading an old Roy Thomas story from 1977. So much fun. And then I'm also still making my way through the House of Mystery Omnibus Volume 2. I talked about it a little last week. I love these omnibus anthologies. I really like these anthologies, and I know they don't work now. I know that no matter what, Americans just don't buy them, which is weird that England's longest-running comic, 2000 AD, is an anthology. But I like that these are short stories. Some of the art is kind of bland and stiff, but a lot of it's from these Filipino artists that are really very, very good. And another anthology that I read that I completely spaced on until just this second, when Dark Horse started doing the creepy and eerie reprints in the hardcovers, they also started new creepy and eerie comics. Now, the creepy comics I had read, but eerie for some reason, I think it's because it only came out twice a year. I had missed a few issues. So I was able to fill in the holes and get all 8 issues of that series. And it really worked as a companion piece. Creepy was more just straight anthology horror, while eerie veered more into science fiction and continuing characters. So in the comic, all of the horror stories in it were science fiction horror stories. And I liked it. There were only, in 8 issues, there were only a few clunkers. The reprints they chose were just masterful. There was a Gene Colan reprint they had in there that I'd never seen before because I hadn't got that far in the eerie reprint hardcovers. And boy, Gene Colan doing a black and white magazine in the 60s when he was able to keep his art sparse. He didn't feel like he needed to fill up every part of every page. His stuff just looks like a movie on a page. His characters always look like they're in motion. Kirby's characters always look like they're in motion. Colan's characters look like they're in motion using a completely different method of body language and layout. And it's one of those where I always loved Gene Colan's art from when I first saw it in those Daredevil reprints, and then Howard the Duck, and all the other, and Tomb of Dracula. But going back and seeing his stuff from the 60s at Warren, where he wasn't inked by somebody who said, this needs to look like a regular comic book. Just beautiful, beautiful stuff to look at. And other than that, I'm geeking that we've reached the end of this episode of Bad News.
Bad news, everyone.
Everybody. So, as we say every week, the comic we like the least, we still like better than the comic that you like the most. Joe?
You know, I was thinking down, since I'm doing this in my basement, if I put pictures of the rooms of my upstairs floor, I'll never have to go upstairs.
Ooh.
I may do that.
Your wife would like that too.
Cory, I feel like dancing. Hit my music.
We done, bitches.